Caleb Boone woke up before sunrise, the same way he did every morning. His ranch sat in a quiet corner of the wide land, far from town noise, and far from anything exciting. He did not mind. At 42, he liked calm days, simple work, and the peace that came from hearing only the wind across the grass. He saddled his horse, checked the fences, fed the animals, and repaired whatever needed fixing. His days were steady, familiar, and predictable. People who knew him said he lived like a man who had given up on surprises. He had lived alone for many years, ever since his parents passed and his brother moved to another state. Caleb learned to carry problems by himself. He did not ask for help, and he did not expect visitors. So on one hot summer afternoon, when he saw a thin figure walking slowly toward his gate from a distance, he felt confused. Travelers rarely came this way. No one had any reason to stop by unless something was wrong. The figure kept walking until it reached the entrance of his ranch. Caleb stepped forward, wiping sweat from his forehead. At first, he thought it was a young man. The traveler wore simple clothes made of natural cloth, a light bag across one shoulder, and dust covering every inch. Then the person lifted the face, and Caleb realized it was a young woman, an Apache woman. Her long, dark hair was braided neatly, even though she looked tired from a long journey. Her eyes were steady, calm, not afraid. Caleb expected her to ask for water, food, or rest. Many travelers did. But what she said made him freeze on the spot. "Cowboy," she said in a soft but firm voice, "I came here to marry you." Caleb blinked, thinking he misheard her. The open land around them was silent, almost waiting. He looked behind him as if someone else might be standing there. But no, it was just him. His voice came out slower than usual. "Ma'am, I think you may be at the wrong place." His tone was polite, but unsure. She shook her head. "No. I came for you. I know your face." She paused, then added words that hit him with a strange mixture of shock and memory. "You rescued me 20 years ago." Caleb had lived a simple life, but he had also lived long enough to experience things he tried hard to forget. He looked at her again, trying to understand. "What did you say your name was?" he asked. "Nalin," she replied. The name slipped into his mind like a key opening a long-locked door. Suddenly, Caleb saw a picture from the past himself as a young wrangler, only 22 then, riding near a river after delivering cattle. He remembered hearing a small cry behind some rocks. He remembered finding a young Apache girl, no older than 5 or 6, injured and frightened. Her ankle had been badly twisted, and she could not walk. He remembered giving her water, lifting her gently, and carrying her to a safer place where an older Apache couple found her and took her home. He never learned her name. He never saw her again. It was a moment that lasted only a few hours. So far back in time that he believed it had faded into nothing. He never thought that small act would return to him in such a surprising way. Now that memory stood in front of him as a grown woman, calm, determined, and looking directly into his eyes. Caleb felt unprepared. He stood awkwardly, unsure what to say. "You came all the way here? For me?" he asked quietly. She nodded once. "Yes." He opened the gate for her, still confused but too polite to leave her standing outside. She stepped onto the ranch land with slow, respectful movements, as if she knew she was entering another person's world. Caleb led her to the porch where she could sit. She removed her bag and let out a breath, showing how long and difficult her journey must have been. "Would you like water?" Caleb asked. "Yes, thank you." He brought her a cup, and she drank it slowly. Her posture remained straight. She did not show fear. She did not look embarrassed. She looked like someone who had made a long decision and was ready to stand by it. After a moment of silence, Caleb finally asked, "Why? Why did you say you came to marry me?" There must be more to the story. She nodded, as if she expected the question. When you rescued me, I was a child. But my tribe did not forget your kindness. My parents told me that if I grew older, I should find the man who saved me and thank him. But then, times changed. My family suffered losses. My tribe moved again and again. Life became very hard. Her voice held no anger, only truth. I remembered your face, she continued. I remembered the man who lifted me when I could not walk, when I had no one else to trust. That memory stayed with me. It became the brightest memory I had. So when my people scattered, I followed the only direction I knew. Caleb listened carefully. Each word felt heavier than the last. He had never imagined that a simple act from 20 years ago would grow into something so meaningful for another person. He did not feel like a hero. He simply helped a hurt child because it was the right thing to do. You walked here? He asked gently. Most of the way, she said. I traveled with a trader for part of the journey. He told me where you lived. Caleb felt a strange ache in his chest, part pity, part admiration. This woman had crossed miles of land, not knowing if he was even alive, not knowing if he would welcome her. So when you reached my gate, Caleb said slowly, you just decided to say you came to marry me? It was the truth, she answered simply. Her honesty hit him harder than anything else. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck, unsure how to respond. He was not a young man anymore. He had no wife, no children, no promises made. But he also had never thought about marriage, not seriously. His life was quiet, steady, not built for sudden changes. You don't owe me anything, Caleb said softly. I helped you because you were a child in danger. You don't have to repay me with something so big. It is not payment, Nalin said. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes softened a little. It is choice. Caleb felt his breath catch. This was not a woman acting out of fear. She was not desperate or confused. She was certain, and that certainty made him even more unsure. He glanced at the dusty road she had walked. Then at the sun setting behind the hills. Then at the woman sitting on his porch, steady as a tree, waiting for his answer, but not forcing it. Maybe you should rest first, Caleb said. We can talk tomorrow. She nodded, accepting the offer without argument. Caleb set up a clean space in the spare room for her. She laid down her bag quietly and sat on the edge of the bed, thanking him in a gentle tone. Caleb stepped outside afterward, standing on his porch, staring at the horizon. The sky turned orange and purple, but his mind was crowded with questions. He had lived alone for so long that he forgot what it felt like to share his space with anyone. And this woman wasn't just anyone. She was someone connected to his past in a way he never expected. By the next morning, rumors began spreading in town. A neighbor riding by saw Nalin's figure near Caleb's porch and carried the story straight to the general store. By midday, everyone knew Caleb Boone had an Apache woman staying at his ranch. Some were curious. Some whispered. Some raised eyebrows. But none of them knew the truth. Caleb didn't care much for rumors, but he cared about Nalin's comfort. He worried she would feel out of place. He worried she misunderstood her own purpose for coming. And he worried he wasn't the man she had imagined for 20 years. Yet, when he saw her that morning feeding his horses with gentle hands, moving with the same quiet strength he remembered from the small girl by the river long ago, he felt something he had not felt in years: connection. The journey that brought her here was long, heavy, and filled with memories he never knew he had given her. And though he still didn't have answers, he sensed one thing clearly. Her arrival was not a mistake. Caleb woke up early again the next morning. But this time, something felt different. For 20 years, his ranch had been quiet and steady, and now there was someone else inside it. He listened carefully from the kitchen. He expected silence, but instead, He heard light footsteps moving outside. When he stepped out, he saw Nalin already awake, brushing the horses gently with her hands. She moved with a calm rhythm, as if she had always belonged there. Even the animals seemed comfortable with her presence. "You're up early," Caleb said, trying to sound casual even though he felt unsure. She turned to him with a small nod. "The animals rise with the sun. I did too." Caleb noticed something strange. She had no trouble understanding the work. She didn't stand around waiting for instructions. She didn't act like a guest. She behaved like someone who wanted to help. He felt both grateful and confused. He had never met someone who felt like a guest and a part of his life at the same time. After breakfast, Caleb sat across from her at the table. The warm morning light came through the window, lighting up the room. Nalin sat quietly, waiting for him to speak first. Caleb rubbed his hands together, searching for the right words. "I need to understand something," he finally said. "You traveled a long way. You left everything you knew. That can't be easy. Why did you come looking for me after so many years?" She lowered her eyes for a moment, then lifted them again. Her voice was soft, but clear. "Because you saved me once. And I could never forget that." Caleb shook his head slightly. "But that was 20 years ago. I was just a young man who found a child in trouble. Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said gently. "Not anyone." He waited. So she continued. Nalin told him about her childhood after that day. Her people had been struggling even before he found her. Her parents did their best. But life became harder each year. Winters were colder. Food was scarce. Their group moved from place to place, trying to rebuild. Then, sickness spread through the camp one year, and she lost both her parents. She had to stay with distant relatives who treated her kindly at first. But even kindness grew thin when there wasn't enough to go around. Through all those years, she said, she remembered one bright moment. A moment when someone had helped her, simply because it was right. "Your face stayed in my mind," she said. "Even when everything else changed around me." Caleb felt a tightness in his chest. He never imagined such a simple act could carry so much meaning. He searched her expression for signs of uncertainty or fear, but found none. She seemed completely sure of what she was saying. "How did you find me after so long?" he asked quietly. "I did not know where you lived," she admitted. "I only remembered your eyes, your voice, and the way you carried me. I followed stories from traders. Some knew your name. One man said there was a cowboy named Caleb Boone near the edge of this town. So I walked. I waited for people who traveled. I followed paths until I came to your ranch." Caleb imagined her long journey walking across wide land, through sun and wind, with nothing but a memory to guide her. It touched him deeply. He leaned back in his chair, trying to absorb the weight of her words. "You must be tired," he said softly. "Life hasn't been kind to you." "It has not been easy," she replied, "but that is past." Her voice wasn't bitter. It was steady, as if she had already learned to carry heavy things without letting them break her. Caleb looked away for a moment, unsure of how to respond. He wanted to help, protect, support her, but he didn't know what she expected. The idea of marriage still hung in the air, heavy and confusing. "Nalin," he said slowly, "you're young. You have your whole life ahead. You don't have to tie it to a stranger like me." "You're not a stranger," she said simply. He swallowed. "You barely know me." "I know enough," she said. "I know the memory I carried through years. I know the man who did not leave a hurt child alone. I know the one who helped without wanting anything back. That memory is stronger than words." Caleb didn't know what to say. Her confidence made him feel both honored and overwhelmed. He wondered if she came because she was alone, because she needed support, or because she truly wanted to be with him. He didn't want her to choose him out of fear or lack of choice. You came here with a promise in your mind, Caleb finally said. But I want you to stay. Only if it's what you really want. Not because you feel you must. Nalin looked at him, her eyes steady. He felt speechless for a moment. Her honesty disarmed him completely. The day moved on, and Nalin continued helping around the ranch. Caleb watched her from a distance as she fed the chickens, repaired a small tear in one of his saddle blankets, and swept the porch. She didn't behave like a visitor. She moved like someone who understood work, who respected the land, who wasn't afraid of effort. Caleb noticed her hands small but strong, her steps light but certain, her presence quiet but warm. He could not deny she brought something different to the ranch, something it had been missing for years. Later in the afternoon, he found her sitting near the corral, watching the horses graze. He walked over and sat on the fence beside her. You work hard, he said. It feels good to work, she replied. It reminds me that I am alive. Her words made him pause. There was a softness in her tone, but also a story behind it, a story of struggle and survival. He asked gently, Were your years after we met very difficult? Yes, she answered honestly. But I learned to stay strong. And I learned that memories can guide us when everything else disappears. Even a memory of a cowboy you saw only once? He asked with a small smile. Yes, she said. Even that. The sun began to set slowly across the open land, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the world was giving them space to understand each other. After a while, Nalin spoke again. You wonder if I came here from fear or loneliness. But I didn't. I came because when I thought of the future, I saw only one place that felt safe. Here. Axe. Faith. One place. Caleb felt a warmth spread through him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. But he was still cautious. He didn't want to take advantage of her trust. Nalin, I need time, he said quietly. All of this is sudden. I want to do right by you. She nodded. I understand, but I am not leaving. Her certainty made him breathe a little easier, though his heart beat faster. That night, when she returned to the spare room, Caleb stood alone in the living room, staring at the wall. He thought about her story, her journey, her determination. He thought about the quiet strength she carried. And he thought about how his life had been empty for so long, without him realizing it. He knew one thing for sure. She didn't come out of desperation. She came because something tied her heart to his, in a way he did not yet understand. As he lay in bed, the house no longer felt like a lonely place. Instead, it felt like someone had opened a door he didn't know existed. He didn't know what the future held. But he knew this. Nalin's arrival had changed everything inside him. The days that followed felt new to Caleb, even though his ranch looked the same. The fences, the barn, the fields, everything stood where it always had. But the feeling in the air had changed because Nalin was there. She helped with chores, ate meals quietly at his table, and moved around the ranch with calm purpose. Her presence was gentle, but it carried a silent strength that Caleb had not been around in years. But the town had changed too. Word traveled fast in small places, and people were quick to form opinions. Every time Caleb rode into town for supplies, he could feel curious eyes watching him. Some people whispered softly, some just stared. A few nodded politely, but their expressions told him they wanted to ask questions. Caleb didn't like attention. He had lived most of his life without standing out. Now, without meaning to, he had become the center of town talk. One morning, he had to ride into town to pick up nails, rope, and flour. Nalin offered to come with him so she could help carry things. Caleb hesitated at first. He didn't want her to face rude comments or cold looks. But she insisted gently, If I am to stay here, I should understand where you live. If. He finally agreed. They rode in together, Nalin sitting behind him on the horse because she was still learning to ride alone. She held the saddle lightly, not wanting to make him uncomfortable. Caleb noticed her grip was careful and respectful, and it made him feel strangely protective. When they entered town, people paused what they were doing. A woman sweeping her porch stopped mid-motion. A man carrying sacks into a store turned to stare. Children nudged each other and whispered. The sheriff, leaning outside his office, lifted his eyebrows slightly. Caleb felt his jaw tighten, but Nalin remained calm and steady behind him. Inside the general store, the whispers grew clearer. That's her, the Apache woman staying with Caleb Boone. He brought her into town? Didn't think he'd be that bold. Maybe he doesn't know what he's inviting to his place. Caleb felt heat rise in his chest. He wasn't a man who liked fights, but he also wasn't one to let insults slide. Before he could say anything, Nalin placed a soft hand against his arm. She shook her head slowly, telling him without words not to cause trouble. Her calmness worked. He took a breath and continued gathering supplies. But trouble found them anyway. When they walked back outside, one of the ranch hands followed. He wasn't drunk or angry, just careless, unaware of how his words could hurt. Boone, the man said with a half smile. Never thought you'd bring one of them into town. Caleb stopped walking. One of them? He repeated, his voice low. You know what I mean, the man said, shrugging. People talk. Just saying you should be careful. Folks don't like strangers much. Especially not someone like her. Someone like who? Caleb asked. His tone grew colder. The ranch hand hesitated, then looked at Nalin. Like her. One of those wandering types. Nalin stood quiet, her face unreadable, her shoulders steady. She didn't flinch, but Caleb felt the weight of those words settle on her like dust. He stepped closer to the ranch hand. Watch your words, he said in a calm but firm voice. She deserves respect. Same as any of us. A one. The man raised his hands defensively. All right. No offense meant. But offense had already been taken by Caleb more than Nalin. He guided her back to the horse, placing the supplies carefully. Once they were out of town and returning home, he finally spoke. You don't deserve to hear things like that, he said. This town can be rough. With strangers. I am used to rough words, she replied quietly. They do not change who I am. Her strength amazed him. It made him want to protect her even more. Later that afternoon, they returned to the ranch. Caleb expected Nalin to stay quiet after what happened, but she surprised him. She went straight to the chores, feeding the animals and sweeping the porch, as if the town's whispers didn't touch her at all. But Caleb knew better. Even strong people felt things they just didn't show them. When evening came, Caleb found her sitting near the corral, looking at the sky. The sunset painted gentle colors across her face. Are you all right? He asked. Yes, she answered. I am just thinking. About what? About how quickly people decide who someone is, she said softly. They saw me for one moment and made a story in their minds. Caleb sat beside her. Their story isn't the truth. I know, she said. But some people listen to lies more easily than truth. He nodded, understanding more than he expected. The next few days brought even more whispers in town. Some folks believed Caleb should send her away. Others thought she might cause trouble. But none of them had met her properly. None had heard her story. None had seen how hard she worked or how gentle she truly was. One afternoon, Caleb rode into town alone to drop off some grain at the mill. He planned to hurry back, but as he walked past the saloon, he heard something that stopped him. Inside, two men were talking loudly. She's trouble, I tell you, one said. These things never end well. Maybe Boone's lost his mind, the other replied. Or maybe she tricked him. Caleb stepped into the doorway. She didn't trick anyone. The room fell quiet. Men turned their heads slowly toward him. Caleb wasn't the type to make public scenes, but he spoke with steady force. She came here because she needed a place she could trust. My ranch is that place. Anyone who has a problem can speak to me directly. The men looked away. None dared challenge him. Caleb wasn't violent, but he had a strong presence when he meant something. After leaving the saloon, he hurried back home. He didn't want Nolan to face town gossip alone ever again. But when he reached the ranch, he found something that made his heart sink. Nolan was standing outside the barn, staring at the ground. Her shoulders were tense. "What happened?" Caleb asked quickly. She turned to him, her eyes calm but tired. "Two men came while you were gone. They did not harm me. They only asked questions. They wanted to know why I am here. Why I said I came to marry you." Caleb felt anger burn through him. "They came here? To my land?" She nodded. "They said they were curious. Nothing more. But I saw the worry in their eyes." Caleb clenched his fists. He didn't like people crossing his boundaries, especially towards someone under his roof. "They had no right," he said firmly. "No one should make you feel unsafe here." Nolan looked at him gently. "I do not feel unsafe. Not anymore. Not when you are here." Her words settled something inside him, a truth he had been avoiding. He cared for her not just as someone from his past, not just as someone he rescued once, but as someone he wanted to protect now. The ranch felt strangely quiet after that moment, as if the land itself understood the shift between them. That evening, as they sat by a small fire outside, Nolan finally spoke in a soft voice. "If I am causing trouble for you, I can leave," she said. "I don't want your life to become heavy because of me." Caleb turned to her sharply. "No, you're not leaving. You hear me?" She looked surprised by his strong tone. "You aren't causing trouble." He continued. "You're facing trouble because of other people's ignorance. That's not your fault. And I won't let you walk away because of someone else's fear." Her expression softened. For the first time since she arrived, Caleb saw something in her eyes that looked like relief. Like she finally felt safe. "You saved me twice now," she whispered. "How twice?" he asked. "You saved me when I was a child," she said. Caleb felt his chest tighten. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew this. He was done, standing on the edge of his own life. Nolan's presence pushed him to make choices he had been avoiding for years. And now, with the fire glowing softly beside them and the open land stretching around them, he understood something else. The world might not welcome Nolan easily. The next morning felt different, even before Caleb stepped out of his room. He sensed a quiet change inside the house, something warm and steady. For days, he had been trying to understand his own feelings, why he felt protective of Nolan, why her presence filled the empty spaces in his home, and why he could not imagine the ranch without her now. When Caleb walked into the kitchen, he found Nolan sorting berries she had picked from nearby bushes. She greeted him with a gentle nod, the same calmness she always carried. But today, there was a softer look in her eyes, as if she had finally allowed herself to rest a little. They ate breakfast quietly, but the silence wasn't awkward. It felt natural, comfortable. After the meal, Nolan began cleaning, but Caleb stopped her. "Come outside with me," he said. "We should talk." She followed him to the porch. The early wind carried the smell of morning grass. Horses grazed lazily near the corral. Everything felt peaceful, but Caleb knew they could not ignore the truth any longer. Last night had shown him more clearly than ever that Naleen came with a heart full of trust. And he realized he did not want her to carry that trust alone. They sat on the porch steps. Nolan kept her hands folded in her lap, waiting for Caleb to speak. He took a slow breath. "Nolan," he began, "you've told me a lot about your past, but there's something you haven't said yet. I can feel it." She looked down for a moment, then lifted her eyes to his. There is something you should know, she admitted. I wanted to tell you before, but I needed to see if this place, if you, were still the person I remembered. Tell me, Caleb said gently. She took her time, choosing her words with care. When I was young, she said softly, after you rescued me, my parents told me something. They said that life was full of hard roads, and sometimes one kind act becomes a sign for the future. They believed that the person who saves your life touches your path in a way no one else can. Caleb listened closely, his heart beating a little faster. I didn't understand it then, she continued. I was just a child. But after they were gone, I started to understand. Your memory stayed with me, even when everything else disappeared. When there was nothing left, I remembered you. Why? Caleb swallowed, unsure how to respond. Nalin continued, her voice steady but emotional. When I grew older, many people came and went from my life. Some were good, some were not. Some wanted to choose my path for me. Some wanted to keep me where I did not belong. But whenever I looked inside my heart, I compared every person I met to the memory of you. Caleb blinked, surprised. Why me? I only helped you once. You helped me without wanting anything, she said quietly. You carried me. You gave me water. You waited until my people found me. You treated me with respect at a time when I was afraid and helpless. That memory shaped my heart. It taught me what kindness should feel like. And every year after that, when I thought about the future, I saw your face. I'm a spiritee. Her words settled over the porch like gentle wind. So when you say you chose me, Caleb said slowly, it wasn't because you had nowhere else to go? No, she answered softly, firmly. It was because I wanted to go where my heart had been pointed for many years. Caleb felt something warm in his chest, something he had been ignoring. Something that had been growing quietly since the moment she stepped onto his land. He realized now that her arrival had not been an accident. Her journey had meaning, and somehow, her path had always led back to him. He looked out over the open land for a long moment before speaking again. Nalin, I'm not sure I deserve that kind of trust. You do, she said simply. I saw it in you when I was a child. I see it in you now. He turned toward her. I'm not a perfect man. I'm not rich. I'm not young. I live a quiet life. I don't know if that's what you want. Saying, I did not come for riches or noise, she replied gently. I came for the person you are. The quietness does not scare me. Loneliness scares me more. And when I came here, I did not feel lonely anymore. Caleb felt the truth of her words settle inside him. For years, he had been living alone, convincing himself he didn't need companionship. But now, seeing Nalin sitting beside him, her eyes warm and open, he realized something important. He didn't want to live alone anymore. Before he could speak, there was movement near the front gate. The sheriff was riding toward them. Caleb sighed. Another concern. Another visit. Another set of questions. Nalin stood up, calm as always. The sheriff dismounted and removed his hat. Caleb stepped forward. Sheriff, if this is about Nalin, I'm already tired of people poking around. The sheriff lifted a hand. Relax, Caleb. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to understand what's going on. Folks in town are talking, and you know how they get when they don't understand something. Caleb crossed his arms. Then tell them to keep their noses out of my business. I try, the sheriff said with a small shrug, but curiosity travels faster than a horse. Nalin stepped forward. I mean no trouble. I came here because of a memory. Because of a kindness I never forgot. The sheriff looked at her for a moment, and his expression softened. I don't think you're trouble, ma'am. It's the town that's slow to accept change. They'll get used to seeing you around. He tipped his hat politely and left. His visit, though short, settled something important. Not everyone in the town wanted to push her away. Some just didn't understand her story yet. After the sheriff rode off, Nalin turned back to Caleb. People will always talk. But I came for you, not for them. Caleb felt the truth hit him with full force. Her loyalty wasn't shaken by gossip, by strangers, or by hesitation. She had walked across a harsh land not because she needed shelter, but because she believed her life belonged near his. He stepped closer to her, his voice low. I don't want you to leave. Not now. Not ever. She looked up at him, eyes warm. Then, I will stay. There was no dramatic moment, no loud declaration. Just two people standing together on a quiet ranch, choosing each other in a simple, honest way. It felt more powerful than anything else. As the day passed, Caleb worked beside Nalin, fixing a fence and repairing a trough. They didn't speak much, but their silence was meaningful. Every time their eyes met, there was understanding. Every time they worked side by side, it felt like they were building something new, not just fixing the ranch, but creating a life together. At sunset, they stood outside, watching the golden light spread across the land. Nalin's braid moved gently in the wind. Caleb stood close enough to feel her presence warming the cool air. Nalin, he said softly, thank you for coming back into my life. She turned to him with a gentle, steady smile. Thank you for giving me a place to belong. And in that moment, without saying the words out loud, they both understood what their future would hold. The little girl he once rescued had returned as a strong woman, and the lonely cowboy, who had never expected anything from life, found someone who chose him freely, faithfully, and forever.